All right, welcome to our episode of the Shotmaker podcast. I'm excited because this is a topic that has come up recently that has not been around for a while. And fittingly, Scott has no idea what I'm talking about.
She's like, let's do the, Legend of AK. Who? What?
Exactly, which is the reason why it's such an interesting topic. So, for those of you that are not aware, the legend of Anthony Kim, and it's legend because nobody knows for sure if this is true, that back in the day, 2008 to I would say like 2010, right? There was this great up-and-coming player. Imagine Rory, right? The predecessor to Rory, right?
The golf world.
He's young. He's great. He almost took down Tiger a couple times. Did. Took down all the Euros in the Ryder Cup. I mean, he was the future guy. And then all of a sudden has an injury, surgery, and never comes back. And nobody really knows why. Never says why he's not coming back. Never says that he's not coming back. Just goes totally silent.
Disappears.
So the underworld of golf, the rumor always was that he had an insurance policy. Now, keep in mind, this is right before the players are really making decent money. Obviously, Tiger's making a lot of money. But, for most players, to make, $1 million in a season you were doing well, right? So maybe over your career, you're going to make like $5 million, which is great money, but not, NFL or baseball money, especially not money today. But so the rumor was that for $20 million, he had an insurance policy on himself and he couldn't come back. Wow. But he couldn't, for whatever reason, say that he could. So it was very, very shady. So it goes away, right? And then there's all this and again, this is before social media, Anthony Kim sightings, like someone went to Vegas and they saw him in a bar, but again, never says a word. So now, fast forward, we're in 2024.
Like 15 years later,
15 years later, which is fair to do the math on if it was a $20 million. Now, some of the speculation is it was $1 million a year.
Okay, because that's a lot of money. I mean, because there were rumors, right, of like Peyton Manning had an insurance policy in college on his arm. Yeah. It's not like uncommon, but that's a big number.
It was a big number. So, one of the rumors is that it was potentially 20 years, $1 million a year.
Okay.
So now, fast forward, we're year 15, potentially, and guess who's starting to have rumors of picking up Anthony Kim?
AK, are you following AK on Twitter? Is that
He's nowhere. He's still nowhere. But rumor is that Liv could potentially pick him up. Now, the funny thing is when Liv, which is, the competitors to PGA, and they're picking off all the big names and trying to get all the eyes on them, the rumor at the beginning when Liv first came out, this was one of the jokes, is they should get Anthony Kim.
Okay.
So now the big question mark, which I think is a pretty universal question to even business owners, is after so many years, could he even really come back and be relevant? So I like to pose this as, similar in business. Could the GM, who was in your business for so many years, everyone remember Tom, he was so great. Right. Can they come back now?
That's a tough one, right? Because if you're in the restaurant industry, whether it's a GM, a server, right, they always recycle back in, right? So it's a super common occurrence.
Yes.
And I think it depends. And I don't want to give too wishy-washy an answer, but it depends.
Yeah.
I think in general, it doesn't normally work out, right?
Yeah.
It didn't work out the first time for a reason. We're talking about the GM that you just talked about, right? They left, did whatever. And this is a really long time later, but let's say in the restaurant world, it's like 5 years later. Would that be fair to
Yes.
So I think it would have to depend on, did something else change, right?
Yeah.
Did that manager go and get experience somewhere else and then come back to you?
Yeah.
You guys always liked each other. The manager did a great job.
Yeah.
And now is more experience. You bring the manager back. I think that could work in that scenario. But the crappy server that was crappy before, and now you're just really short servers comes back in, I'm probably telling you to say no. Yeah. How about that? Why don't we start with that part?
Well, and I would say which is surprising because I'm usually the optimist too, more optimistic here. I think to me, it doesn't work because I think whether you're going the sports analogy or the business analogy, I think there's a little bit of a resentment on both sides, right? Like, I would say as a fan, going back to the Anthony Kim, you're a little annoyed that, you have this thing you carry around. You can't say you don't have a phone. Right. You could have set up an Instagram and just been like, hey, I'm Anthony Kim. How's it going, everyone? Thanks for being my fan.
Right.
but you chose not to. And now you're going to come back and things are different. And I think this is the other thing, whether it's business or sports, that you're, I think, naive to think, oh, well, it's the same. Well, it's not the same. It's not even close to the same. And you have all these players, whether it's business or golf, that have put in their time every day, and now you're just going to show up again.
And I think that's where it's a good point on some sort, right? Because we're going to go to different examples. So we like to really... So, right, you have a great line cook. Yeah. Line cook's awesome. But he blows up, temper, walks out on the shift.
Yeah.
Comes back in 2 months later, 2 years later, whatever it is. There's still a lot of staff that was already there in that.
Yeah.
Now, again, back to you need some people, a good body. Wow. Should we bring that person back in? And like you said, there's probably resentment of other staff that person went out that way. Yeah. So while it might be an easier decision, like, oh, I'll just bring that guy in. He's already trained. He's really good.
Yeah.
I think that can hurt the overall culture and structure of your restaurant.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it we'd be on the same page on where. Yeah. I think there are just some times where, I'm trying to think of a good scenario where,
Such an optimist.
Maybe, but like a server... is a young server, they went through college, worked for you, went into their field. Years later, is like, I want to get into restaurant management. They left on good terms. Okay. That's where I could picture, like, I do like that person. I did see that, the drive. That's where I guess I could see it. Oh, that makes sense.
Yes. Well, and I think this is the dilemma, right? Because like you said, as an owner, it's such an easy... decision, right? Because this person was great. They have the skill. I don't have to teach them who we are. They know who we are. And that's very appealing. Similar to, now the other part of the story, now again, this is all rumor, is the PGA Tour actually talking to Anthony Kim because they've lost so many great players. They just lost Terrell Hatton. They just lost John Rahm. They lost all these big names. And he does have a draw. It would be very interesting to see how can Anthony Kim play after all these years. If I were on the PGA Tour, I would be pissed if you actually pay this guy to come back when here's the middle of the road player showed up every week, no guarantee of a paycheck, practicing, trying to get better, maybe not getting better.
It's a fair point.
Right? If you take there's some players from that generation that just can't make it on tour anymore. Yeah. And now you're going to take some guy who can't even post on Instagram to say I'm fine, and we're going to pay him to bring him back. So...
And that's the problem, right? That's the problem we run into, whether it's in golf like that. I mean, think about any of the sports, right? You had a guy that was on your Philadelphia sports team, and he went for free agency and went somewhere else, and now it's 5 years later. And we've seen it both ways, right? We're going to go to Philadelphia because we're here. Nick Foles came back. How'd that work out? Right? That was it didn't get any better than that, right?
That's true.
And now you look at other people that have come back that didn't really work out like that. Yeah. It just, either they were just, think of like an Allen Iverson, great Philadelphia basketball player, went away, came back to finish his career. Well, he wasn't the same Allen Iverson because he's older, So there's so many different variables on, especially with athletes, because you're adding the time in there.
Yeah. And that's where I think, it's interesting. I believe, in the shift, whatever, you're probably going to have people who left to go sell real estate or, and now they're sort of coming back to your organization. And I think it's something to think about because I think whether it's sports or business, it's just hard to bring someone back in who has left. And, as great as the skill set is, as great as it could be a great story, I think there is a lot of residual stuff that you just have to think about. And so, as a golf fan, I kind of hope that they don't do. Right. I think the PGA Tour will lose all respect, especially if it's them. If it's Liv, they've already taken everybody else. So let's just add Anthony Kim to the list. But if it's the tour and you have players who have, put in all this time, who've put their neck out, and now it becomes sort of a, like a circus, right? Like you don't need that. I think good golf wins, business, good attendance, good, visitation. That is really what wins. And, so it's an interesting story.
No, hey, restaurant-wise, like I said, it's there, it's out there. I think, the biggest thing we would say from that side is take the emotional side out of it. I mean, I think, a lot of times, because working in restaurants, happened a lot. I mean, people come back and some were good employees, some weren't good employees. Some you hope that maybe they changed because they matured a little bit. A lot of times, I wasn't shy about it. I would ask their other managers. I would ask staff. Yeah. Because to me, that was more important than the actual restaurant need.
Yeah.
And if you got that buy-in, that manager's like, no, I think so, or a couple of our staff members are like, to me, that didn't mean a lot, the decision. And it was still going to be a risk. But every new hire is a risk. Anne's out. She's completely out.
Because I was an Anthony Kim fan. So as an Anthony Kim, I liked him. I was like, he's going to be so great for golf. And then he just left. I mean, it's great to hang out in Vegas, but you could post on social media. So transitioning a little bit, because I think this also sort of sheds light on, that whole idea of, as an owner, it should be an easy decision. This could be something you see as a win. But I think there's also the element of listening to whether it's your customer base, your employees. And I think what we also see, to make this a little more universal than just the Anthony Kim, what you see a lot in sports right now are organizations or leagues not always listening to the people who have been following them for a long time. I think in golf, the other big thing on the table is you still have these fighting elements, right? Live versus the PGA Tour. And most fans don't care. They just want to see good golf. Right. And I think that's sort of getting lost in the PGA Tour. I think there's other examples in sports where, at the end of the day, you're a business. And as much as you have these, arguing sides or, you've drawn a line in the sand, I mean, it comes a point where we just have to deliver for our customer base.
Well, I think it's knowing what the customer base wants, or what they think they want, and I think there is a business side to it. I mean, everyone right now, right? That was some of the argument for football is the Taylor Swift thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, they're playing her too much. They're playing too much. They are.
They are. It's kind of annoying.
But if you're the NFL. This is free advertising. The amount they pay to advertise on Amazon and all these other things. They're like, Taylor's just coming to the games for free? Yeah. I mean, so if you're shocked that you see Taylor Swift 15 times during a Chiefs game, I don't know why you're shocked.
Yeah.
So while you're right, it's too much. But from the business standpoint, they're running with it.
Right. Well, and that's also, right, and I think it's a similar where, you have your core NFL fan who's been with you forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now you just sold out.
You sold out. They completely sold out. And they don't Fox,
they don't care.
They don't care that you watching your TV is complaining. Because guess what? There's 30 people that are watching now compared to that one person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, wrong, again.
Which goes back to why the PGA is probably going to sell out to Anthony Kim, right? They don't care. And that's, it's such a fine line.
Yeah, it is. And there's, right or whatever, it's not going to be a right answer. It's going to be someone's decision. And this is how it goes. And I think as you run your business, you're making those same decisions. You want to do what's best for your staff and you want to do what's best for your customers. Ultimately, without being greedy or any of that stuff, you still want to be what's best for your restaurant.
Yeah.
You have to do, and if that's, a smaller thing, like taking a menu item that just been a dud, but 3 people are mad it's off, well, that thing was killing you. It was killing you. And I know it's a very small example to the things that we're talking about, but those are little examples you're making every day to say, hey, that is a tough decision.
And I think as best as you can, I think this is, the NFL's tried in this area, I hope the PGA tries in this area, is, listening to the subsets of, not all customers want the same thing. Right. And I think you could even equate this to, your regulars at the bar who get mad because it's vacation week and now they don't have a seat at the bar. So in some ways we have to find them that seat.
Sure.
We can't just be like, forget you. I got, families in town, and that's true, but you still want that guy who's going to come and be your regular at the bar because there's times that you need him.
I think that's the juggle. We want to make everyone happy. And I think that's the key is the good restaurants and good owners are trying to figure out how to do both. Yeah. How do I increase to-go sales, but the person sitting at that table is not getting a worse experience?
Right.
That's probably real life what you're thinking right now, right? Like, man, I got DoorDash going, I got Uber Eats going, and Grubhub going, and now that person, my regular who comes in every Thursday night, I don't want them waiting any longer.
Yeah.
And that's a tough
balance decision. Act. And, I think to me, it's just being aware, showing your empathy. Right? I think the NFL could, show a little empathy, not drool over the Swifties, but maybe remember that they are
it's the NFL. We are watching a football game that, includes people on the field. Yeah, we could.
We could do a little more empathy there. And I think the PGA Tour, same thing. Like, I understand you want more eyes. I understand you see this as like, wow,
Right.
all the people are going to turn in for the spectacle of some guy who's come back after 15 years because he wasn't practicing because he never thought he was coming back.
Right.
So as much fun as that might be, we have to remember there are people who watch the PGA Tour to learn golf and see good golf. So, just that awareness, because it is the same as, in your business, just the awareness of, we want to make sure everybody knows that we value them, that we're not just dollar signs driven, but we want the experience to be the same for all.
No, 100%. And I think, and that's not easy. We know that there's going to be some things that, is going to be a tough decision, whether it's, all right, if I do this, I'm going to make less money, or I do this, I'm going to make more money, or I do this, I'm going to piss this person off, or I do this, I'm going to, right? Like, that's what you guys are doing every day. Everything is, but I think it's, we always talk kind of, with managing, for me, it was always develop managers, manage with your heart and your mind.
Yeah.
Like, I want both.
Yeah.
Make a decision, and if you put both those things into it, I'm pretty confident that I'm okay with your decision.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing. If you're like, hey, I'm going to at least think about both scenarios when it happens.
Right. And I think, as a business owner, it's not easy, right?
No.
You're going to have your own Anthony Kim situation where there is no good or bad, because you're not going to please everybody all the time. So if nothing else, kind of following some of these other trends, seeing the relationship between this and the battle you guys have every day, sometimes it can just make us realize that there's good and there's bad. There's going to be times we don't make the right decision. We hope we do.
Right.
And, when faced with our own Taylor Swift or Anthony Kim, we're just going to roll with it and try to do the best we can.
Awareness. That's all we can ask is be aware. And then go for it. And then make the best of it with all the data you have, then do it.
Yes. So thank you for tuning in to this week's episode, and we'll see you on our next episode of the Shotmaker podcast.